Hey everyone, welcome to Sales 101, the B2B Sales Classroom. We're your hosts, Donald C. Kelly and
BJ Allen.
Now, we're really pumped for today's episode. We are visiting one of our friends named Charlie Crump, and he is overseeing teaching sales at Brigham Young University in Idaho. The way that they're doing some stuff in their class is pretty unique. And he comes with a load of experience. You're going to hear him talk about that, but working at companies such as Adobe and many different startups and medical fields. And Charlie, at one point, even sold boxes. And I'm just going to leave that there. What are you looking for this episode, BJ?
Yeah, we're excited. For our listeners, you know that me and Donald love teaching innovative methods for prospecting. One of the reasons we wanted Charlie to come on is talk about how he's doing this in the classroom and what are some new things we can teach our students that will help them to separate themselves from other job applicants and also from other entry-level people in their program when they get their job.
Love it. Well, listen, we're going to go ahead and dive in right now with Charlie. Listen very closely to the first item he sold, and it may be on the final. Just kidding. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, we are so pumped to have you, and you and BJ, I know you guys go way back, both being at sister universities. So we were grateful that we were able to wrangle you to come onto the podcast. So thanks for being here and for coming to share with us. We bragged about you a little bit there in the teaser and why we feel you were so perfect for this episode. In particular, this is you're doing some really unique things in your classroom as you're helping the next generation of seller. Take a second and give us a little bit about your background, Charlie, your sales experience, and then we have some questions. I want to pick your brains a little bit how we can improve our teaching and use some unique ways to teach students.
Great. Well, thanks again for having me on. And we are our brothers up north. We love our brothers down south in Provo. So I sold professionally my entire career. I started out of undergraduate, graduated, I think 98, 97, somewhere in there. I'm dating myself. Selling cardboard boxes, packaging. Worked for a distributor, and the .com era was emerging around the turn of the millennia, and jumped into a large legal publisher, LexisNexis, which was the first commercial use of the internet, so they say, in 1973. I mean, had a wonderful run there. Took a year off to pursue an MBA at the University of Utah. So I went there not once, but twice. And then from LexisNexis, moved on to, had a couple startups, spent a lot of time at Adobe, had that nice run, just right as Omniture was being acquired. And then finished off my career before coming up here at a small Canadian e-commerce company. So a lot of tech, even though I like to claim I know how to sell to the warehouse guys in packaging.
When you started off selling boxes, I'm like, that's pretty cool there, man.
Yeah. It is a different world, but I tell you what, there's a lot of money in those account management type roles in the right situation. There really is. It's a great life. I always tell students, you don't have to be a hunter.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to hunt and fish and also farm. You can make seven figures.
So then so Charlie, tell us a little bit what led to BYU Idaho. Why the change and how did that come about?
I think it's more money in education.
Yeah, nobody, I can vouch for that personally.
Way more money in education.
Yeah, there is doing what I do. They're certainly not, especially where I'm at. But I will say, I had a professor, Gary Grickscheit, bless his heart, rest in peace, at the University of Utah back in the day. And there were not many sales programs back in the late 1990s. I mean, there just weren't. And so in his class, I remember we had a couple students fly in from like Colorado and Chicago just to take his class for a semester. It was pretty pioneering. And I had been denying sales my whole life. My father was a salesman extraordinaire, and I thought, well, maybe I want more, and nobody was talking about it. And I took this class, and sometimes all of a sudden you go from mediocre student to the smartest guy in the class. It just came really easy, and I thought maybe there's something there. So I started to work, and I remember when I was graduating, they're like, "Hey, what are you going to do, Crump?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm going into sales," and people will get this look on their face like, "Oh, you couldn't find anything like a real job?" I'm like, "Whoa, back off," Not only was it an insult to me a little bit, but also to my family, right? So
You were like, "I'll show you. I'm gonna sell boxes."
Well, yeah, I'll show you. Duct tape, baby. And, uh, and so I did, but I also made twice as much as they did in my first
Right.
year and easily that much in my first 5 years. So there is kind of that paradigm there. But I remember feeling the disrespect and I had in my head, if I ever go back, maybe someday I'll go back and teach sales just to legitimize it and make it go. And then I kind of forgot about it. And I went quite a bit later, 5 years later, got an MBA. Again, I thought, well, maybe I'll teach at Salt Lake Community College just for fun on the side. And they didn't have anything then. They did have a sales course, but they asked me to teach the economic history. And I did the math, and it worked out to be about $3.50 an hour to teach at the community. And I thought, I can't do it. I can't do it. So I let that dream go. Now, flash forward, I think the year was 2017, and I get this itch again to go teach. And so I call up my brother's best friend, then dean of the business school, Taylor Randall, up at my alma mater. And I approached him and I said, "Hey, let's start a sales institute. Let's do the whole thing." And he said, "That's a wonderful idea. Let's do it." And so we were kind of gearing up, taking shape, had a few meetings, and then for whatever reason, he had to pull his funding last minute due to some clerical errors or something on his side that took all of his money at his side. And I thought, well, it's just not meant to be. And so then flash forward another 5 years, we had bought a little investment property up in Rigby, Idaho. And I was up there on nights and weekends kind of fixing it because it hadn't quite been all the way restored or finished. And so that was kind of the project I was on. And I was driving home, and as clear as the nose on my face, I felt a very strong impression to move to Idaho. And I started laughing out loud. And I said, "Well, you're going to have to convince my wife." And same thing, same experience happened to her, independent. So we moved up here. And about 2 days before we were set to close on our house in Salt Lake, then she said, "You've always wanted to teach sales. Why don't you see if BYUI has a program?" And so I did. And lo and behold, I was like a week out from the application deadline. I didn't even have a resume. It had been so long. And so I threw some stuff together and, 6 months later, preparing to teach my first semester up in BYU, Idaho. And that would have been in 2021.
Very
So here I am.
Amazing.
That was a long answer. I'm sorry.
What a
Oh,
cool story. What a cool story. And
Yeah.
that's 2021. That's like when I started teaching at BYU. So the same times the Lord directed us to the BYUs to teach sales and help lead a sales program. So
I
very
always
cool.
tell my students, just because the Lord put me here doesn't mean I'm any good at it.
you're good enough for what we need, right? So
There you go.
he knows you.
But
And
I am
what,
a fan of sales.
yeah.
I just absolutely love sales. I'm the biggest evangelist on campus. I'm sure after a while, my entry-level sales class, that a lot of marketing and management majors take, they're just sick of hearing me because I'm like a broken record. At the end, they're just like, "No more. We know all about sales. Leave us alone." So
Well, go along that line. You're passionate for sales and for B2B sales and for professional selling in general. You talk a lot about this idea of students, using latest tech or latest avenues. And one in particular that you're passionate about are videos. BJ and I both talked about this in our courseware, but you don't find a lot of other professors that are as advocating for the tool as much as we find out there. But would love to hear what do you stress it so much with your students and feel that it's so important for them to use video in their sales efforts?
got it. So in this advanced sales course, the first half is designed to give a fast start in your sales career. And the way everybody hires a new seller to be a hunter, to go out and beat the bushes and prospect, right? So we create this prospecting portfolio. And part of that is we learn all the specific methodologies and the formulas and frameworks that work in individual prospecting channels. And the big three, we call it email, phone, and LinkedIn direct message, right? And what we find is a great overlay to that, and the data doesn't lie. There are specific formulas and frameworks as well for video by channel, but it's a highly effective way. And once it becomes routine and habit, if you know the formula, it becomes, the response rate, Donald, it's probably like 3x of what a written email or direct message would be. It just adds that personal touch that while it's broadly available, nobody does it. And so it's a real differentiator. And if somebody sends me a video that's to Charlie Crump in my direct message, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to watch it. Even if I delete it afterwards, I'm still going to watch it, which I cannot say the same for any other, text message that I receive in those same channels.
So Charlie, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit more about the context of teaching video. So what program do you teach your students to use? What's kind of the framework you teach them how to do it? What are some kind of best practices you emphasize? And what's kind of the feedback that you get from students?
So some of the tools, there's several. I've just always adopted Vidyard because it was the first one to the scene. And so using those tools, they add a quick plug-in and then they get to practice with it. Donald's the one that put us on to just using the direct functionality within LinkedIn and just using those videos. So in that channel we do.
Mhm.
Nice thing about Vidyard is you can have a nice script that you're looking at right below your camera. And I know it's not supposed to be scripted. It's supposed to be raw, which is true, but sometimes you want a nice key message, or maybe it's a generic message that you're personalizing. So the personalization is a little raw, but some of those core messages to that ICP persona are there. I think the second half of your question, BJ, was about, the purpose behind it. What was the second half
What
besides?
what what's the framework you use to teach them how to do an effective video email?
Yes, there are several out there. I kind of scavenge out there, and if it's publicly available and we're only teaching less than 10%, I think when we reference the URL, we're good. There is, gosh, he wrote a book, a very tactical book about just examples, and it's like seriously like this thick. He created a video that we watch about giving the framework and formula for that outreach, and we teach it in class. His name escapes me, and I apologize. I know he's a big name in social selling. Donald, you may know. Is there like
Is
a
it
sem book?
Daniel Disney?
Daniel Disney. Daniel sounds right, but not Disney.
Okay. Yeah, Daniel
But
Disney. He's big on LinkedIn.
I can find out and follow up with you.
Yeah, yeah.
One of my students, Spencer, showed it to me early on up here. And so we teach that framework, very simple. We help X do Y without, paying one or two if they're available. And, it's a quick, we think of certain channels like a water cooler conversation, very casual, like in LinkedIn and social, where if it's in email, we almost mimic a good lavender email, just in verbal, and it seems to work, but
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really cool. I mean, you're speaking our love language, Charlie, is that I mean, me and Donald harp on this all the time when we talk in our courseware, when we go on podcasts and talk about the effectiveness of video email. And I tell my students, like, in 20 years, maybe I'm not teaching in the class anymore because everyone's doing it, but right now, like, it's a huge differentiator. And you're right, like, the data doesn't lie. I mean, studies show that it substantially increases open rates, reply rates. And when I go and go do company trainings and I'll talk about it and I'll say, like, how many of you are doing this? And no one raises their hand, but then
Bagel.
someone will always say, like a VP, or someone will always say, like, I got one of these like last month. It's like the
right.
only email I remember. And I'm like,
And why it's not more prevalent, I don't know. Maybe it's AI just creating all the emails and sellers feel like they're, it's like the guy that knocks the doors on their mission, making them feel good, but it's not always the most effective way
mhm.
to find. At least that was 20 plus years ago down in Chile. But it feels good to have so much activity, even though the fruits aren't there.
I think many people are the thing that I got from a conversation with LinkedIn, and we'll transition there in a second. But our group leader, so to speak, of the cohort from LinkedIn that we were working with, he asked about why people don't post on LinkedIn, and we all gave our different answers. And he says, his name was Xander. He said the main reason people don't post is because the professional in the title, like professional network. Like they'll post on Facebook or reshare something on Instagram, share garbage on Twitter. But
Yeah.
when they come to LinkedIn, they're apprehensive because peers are watching. And I think sometimes when it comes to the videos, the similar belief, like this is professional. I don't know what to say. I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't like the way I look on camera. I don't know how to edit it. All of this garbage that stop it from happening. But
Mhm.
like you both shared, every executive that has ever received one, they preach about it. But I think it's just that novelty. So if you can get it to the student's mind to do it, admit those, those built-in inherent challenges, I mean, they're going to be light years ahead.
Well, and to your point, Donald, I 100% agree. It is putting yourself out there. I mean,
Yeah.
video is pretty hardcore. And that's why I like Vidyard, and I'm sure there are other commercially available applications that do the same thing. But you can just have a couple keywords. You don't write the whole thing out, but just a few keywords in prep. You spend
Yeah.
under 2 minutes doing some personalization research, come up with a plan, and then just execute it. Even if it makes mistakes, that's what makes it real. And I believe the data also shows that the more real it is, the more impactful it can actually be. So I always tell kids, don't retake it. Just make sure you get your 2 or 3 key messages across and send it.
So here's one to speaking about realness. You guys remember in the pandemic, everyone probably saw this. The guy, doing the news interview at home, his kid walked in, then his wife came in after him, the baby, like
Yes,
the two
I do
kids, like
remember that.
everyone talk about like realness, like, and I think that was everyone's pandemic life. And then I think it just helped us to realize we don't have to be all buttoned up and stuff. But you're right, that does it is a uniqueness that come from it. Which I feel I love that you brought this up in our prep call, like, as you're teaching the next generation of students, you're teaching them about personal branding, which I don't believe was something big in previous generations because of the fact that we didn't have it as much. I remember Drew Eager taught us LinkedIn. That's when I created LinkedIn,
The
was
OG,
yeah,
yes.
the OG that he taught us about LinkedIn, and I was like, "I need to create this LinkedIn profile. This ain't Facebook, it's boring, girls on this thing." Like, um, but setting up a LinkedIn profile, it literally was a great piece for building my business identity and brand. And prior to that, it's your Rolodex and maybe a resume. How do you help students understand the power of that personal brand, that vulnerability and visibility, and why that's so needed in this era?
That's a great question. I do think as if metrics for students is getting a job, it's more important than what you learned is actually your network. I always tell them in 2026, I say, finish this sentence. It's not what you know. And they always say, it's who you know. And I said, in 2026, it's how well they know you. And you have to take it that extra mile and actually make the investment in your outreach. And so we, a la Drew Eager, we start that in Marketing 100 and we teach them those concepts. In fact, today's the last day of class up here for that class. And there's still a few that haven't gotten their 6 informational interviews done as freshmen, right? So part of that, we teach them on how to build a nice, respectable LinkedIn. There's some great LinkedIn learning resources that I assign extra credit to on building your personal brand on LinkedIn. And then in my advanced sales class, they're required to post every single week.
Let's go.
We coach them and we tell them what's good, what's bad. Make sure you go in and every couple days you're responding. And honestly, it makes all the difference. It really does. And then if the smart ones get in that pattern, they have their pick of the litter when it comes to career opportunities when they graduate.
In my when I did the adjunct there, Charlie, one of the things I had the students do was we got them Apollo, and you can get Apollo, the free basic one. And I had them taught them LinkedIn throughout the semester. So then got to halfway in the semester, I said, "All right, you guys need to. How many of you are seniors? How many of you are fresh, juniors? How many need an internship this summer?" And so I had them go and find people on LinkedIn, show them the process. Then they started getting their email addresses and pitching them. And one of them was pitching this girl. She pitched someone and got this informational interview. She got the internship all because she did all of this and had a presence on LinkedIn. And a beautiful thing about this, though, like Charlie, is like it made them see that it was real, and that's why I love what you're sharing. Like it was real to them that this actually does work, because we can tell you from night and from Kingdom Come, but if you can do it yourself and see it for magic. So that's why I love the posting daily or weekly. The other side to this is an interesting stat. One of my coaching client recently, he's going through an interview process right now. It's a major organization. He sat down with one of the companies, and this is totally flipping the script. They said they didn't like him. The feedback, one of the things they didn't like about him was that he was at his previous company too long. Dead serious.
Aging of the
And
guard. Yeah.
but here's the thing, it was like only like maybe 6 years that he was at the previous. they want people. They said that this doesn't, because they're like, especially in the tech sales world, they're like, this doesn't show us that you don't know how to sell in multiple different environments or different ways of selling or whatnot. So the stat that we saw, and I think we talked about this in the book, BJ, is like it's 18 months for a sales role. But think about that now. If you don't have a personal brand, a personal identity, it's kind of tough for people to see, get the digital footprint of your capabilities, and
Mhm.
having that great LinkedIn profile,
Well, and
help
one
with that.
thing I do leverage, I don't know why I'm shamed about it. It's the LinkedIn Learning content.
Oh my goodness, amazing stuff.
Offer courses. It's free to students. And so I
Just
say,
let them
look,
do that and then grade that, Charlie.
well, we really, I know we talk about it, and we go through the whole, a model of actually exercising and doing all the things that we do. But when you complete those courses, you can easily port over those certifications right into your LinkedIn. And so I say, if you want a sales career, start looking like you're a student of the game. Because right now, that's all you are. Most of you aren't selling beyond, door to door or other kind of lower end remedial type things, and it works. It really does work. And LinkedIn Learning, it's great. It's
Yeah.
supplemental, but it's a great way to start, get the foundation going, and then we build it. It's great. I had one student didn't know it was free, and he racked up like $500 in one class. He's now down at he's just crushing it down at a tech company in Dallas. But yeah,
Oh
I
my
always
goodness,
tease him. I still feel bad.
Hey, well, it worked. So
it worked. Yeah, good point, BJ.
the ROI on that 500 seems like
Yeah, he
pretty
did. He
good.
did. At the end.
So Charlie, man, some awesome stuff we've talked about. I love engaging with professors who are doing really novel things, and I think the non-traditional textbook things that you're discussing using LinkedIn, using videos, like this is awesome. So let's just end by talking about how you build authenticity into this whole process, because I know that's kind of one thing you emphasize, and kind of one thing you're known for is how do you build authenticity into sales, right? Especially in teaching at a religious university where those type of like ethics and things are really important to students, and that may be one thing that keeps them away from the world of sales and thinking like, oh no, like I don't want to be known as that. So can you talk about how you change students' perceptions in regards to those things, and how you build that into your curriculum?
You bet. Just for the listeners out there, BYU Idaho, one of its learning objectives at the university level is becoming a disciple leader, right? And it's a wonderful place because we get to embed Christian and gospel principles into lectures about sales. So the first week of our professional sales class, which is the gate to all of our other sales courses, we literally spend the first week resetting that paradigm, explaining that most of their iterations as being non-sophisticated buyers, consumers, are one and done transactions, where there's no long-term relationship. Think buying a car, a used car, maybe buying something at a kiosk in the mall or something like that. There's not a lot of risk, open to deceit, and you get some bad actors out there. But in what we then pivot to is that's nothing that you will get kicked out of B2B sales in a hurry as your reputation catches up to you if you sell deceptively. And the best way to sell, and the people I encountered of all faiths in my career out selling, were honest, ethical, and moral. They always were. And they're the ones that customers can rely on. So we talk a lot about problem solving. To your authenticity part, we, in an age of AI in particular, I think the ability to connect as humans is going to be nothing but more and more increasingly important, right? And so we do teach out of Jeb Blunt's book. It's kind of a companion. I don't know if that's reverse, but Sales EQ, which is a great book on process, but it also embeds a lot of an emotional quotient and how to gain the trust and authentically connect with your customers to try and move into. And that's paired nicely with all your expert sales processes that gain that trust and become a trusted advisor, not a sales rep. Now, not all sales motions and sales cycles can get there, but what we're training for is the enterprise level of sales. And so we start there. And then as we move into advanced sales, my partner up here in the sales program, Rob Wilson, he teaches account management, which is built on largely the companion guide we use to that is Stephen Covey Jr.'s Speed of Trust, and how it's that do say ratio. If you say you're going to do it, it better be done, right? And how quickly do you build trust? Well, it's not given, it's earned, right? And then in my course, we talk a lot about being settled internally, and we're trying to skate to where the puck's going to be, like Wayne Gretzky used to say. And so, understanding that who you are is going to be just as important as how you sell and what you sell in the future. And so we really, I can't say double down, but we look at some of the research that Lisa, I believe her name is pronounced McLeod, and the noble purpose, and how if you are settled internally, you understand the value that you genuinely bring to your customers, that they can feel it and they can sense it. And that's perfectly paired with the principles of that we teach up here around discipleship and the gospel of Jesus Christ, is if you genuinely believe that and understand and can articulate the value you're bringing, then it becomes far easier to hold the line, like in a negotiation. But more importantly, just doors and the information you need to win, just the floodgates open from your customers. And so but there's some pre-work that you have to do as a human to get there, to be really settled on who you are. And so when you look at some of the research being done out there, coming out of the military, quite frankly, and how to influence people. And it's not psyop. It's actually just being settled in who you are and your core principles enable you to get that higher level one-on-one interaction, and people can feel it. So
That is cool.
that's some deeper stuff that we're trying to really do. That's probably outside a normal box, but that's where we see the puck going. To quote Wayne Gretzky, we think it's imperative that you settle yourself, understand what you're doing, and then really be able to articulate and provide the value to your customers, and they'll feel it.
I love that, man. I think this is just the cherry on top, because like you started off with this, why you got into sales and how people depict it, and the depiction of how people see our profession compared to the reality of it is two different things. And I feel in the age where we are right now, as you mentioned, age of AI, the overload of information, or garbage being sent to your inbox and thousands of phone calls. Trust is that whole nother factor. Authenticity is a whole nother factor, and the human side. And I think that human side is encompassing that trust and that authenticity. And here's a program that is doing that, not at one course, but in multiple different levels. Commend that. That's awesome.
Thank
No
you.
bias to you guys at all, but
For those of you who don't know, Donald was student body president at Brigham Young University, Idaho, back in the day. So
and I hold a 4x1, the 400-meter record.
there you go. There you go. I love it. A
Somebody's gotta
sprinter
beat
too.
that.
I did
That's
not know
cool.
that.
Living in the glory days.
Back in my days, I used to throw a football over that mountain there, boy. Uncle Rico.
Uncle Rico. Yeah, that is an Idaho thing right there.
Oh my goodness. We'll have that for another episode. VJ, any closing thoughts on your side?
Oh, just Charlie, thanks for coming. And
course.
I love the content that you're discussing, and I think this is going to be such a fantastic episode. So professors, as you're listening, right, and we think about like adopting some of these new techniques to reach out to people, they're just worth it. Like, these are things that are going to set our students apart when they go out there, and no one else knows how to do a video email. No one else knows how to contact on LinkedIn and use it effectively. And our students will be doing it because we taught it to them in the classroom. So let's take an example from Charlie's textbook here.
Charlie,
Love
what's
it.
the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
I would love to hear from them. Probably LinkedIn, direct message, Charlie Crump. Of course, you can email me at crumpc@byui.edu.
Let's see how many video messages he get, or audio.
I would
messages.
love some. Make them good. Make them real.
Awesome. Charlie,
No,
thank you for coming.
the world of sales is just begun. There's so much happening, from AI and having students create, message applications that automatically tailor and personalize and create sequencing, to creating, sales coaches, personalized. You can even make them sound like the real voice of, say, Jeb Blunt. It's phenomenal, to AI simulations and getting those, 30, 40, 50 reps to gain mastery It's just a fun time to be in sales.
Love it, man. So excited. Thank you again, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Nice to connect. We'll talk to you soon.
Boxes and tapes, DJ. What? Like as soon as he said it, I was like, duh, like the .com era. It's like the people who were making shovels freaking in the gold rush era. I was like, dang it. Like everybody's going to need boxes.
Oh, I love this story. Yeah. Charlie, thanks so much for coming on. When you hear this, we're not making fun of you.
Oh,
We just love that you were getting flack from friends and family for taking sales after you graduated. And the first job was you had to tell them you were selling boxes. I'm sure that did a lot for to hush the criticism. But man, what an awesome episode. And you can tell Charlie's sharp, he's articulate,
right?
and he's like exactly what we need in our sales education, because he's teaching students real life skills from an authentic and ethical perspective, which I totally love. And I think it's powerful for students to hear that from people, to think like, oh, I can go into sales and I can still be who I am, and I can help people. And it's a noble profession. And then I think the thing I loved the most about that episode was, I hope our listeners heard a little bit about what are some things we can implement that are really kind of non-traditional.
Yes.
And can we use and teach our students how to use Vidyard and to do and send a video email? I mean, these are things that are different that maybe we don't emphasize as much as we should in the classroom.
And I think it goes back to this idea too. There's just no cookie cutter in the way that you can do sales effectively. I think it's a bunch of ingredients, and you have to experiment with these ingredients. And if you do the same exact one over and over, you're going to get a pretty boring meal. But some prospects want videos, or they want the email, or they want the audio. You just try different things. And that's why it's important to have that diversity of tools. So absolutely love it. I especially like the part, BJ, where he was emphasizing about at the very end there. Like, it's not one of the topics that's often spoken about. One of our guests, he did talk about like ethics, but it's not often like the first one on the radar. But the ethics and ethos and so forth of having your own, where you're going to cross the line in the sand, or have your line in the sand, so to speak. And I think it's more important now than ever to have that with the trust that needs to be built. So love it. Love it. And Charlie wants you guys to connect with him on LinkedIn, so please do so. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. Stealing some of the stuff from Charlie here, and hopefully you can find some benefit from it as well. But you know what we want you to do? As always, we want you to not only enjoy the podcast and enjoy the episode and use it in your classroom, but
good luck teaching sales.
Ooh, I like that change.
A little change.
Thanks, guys.